BLUELOCK's U20 match is finally here. We finally got to see the game. More importantly, some goals this episode. And spoiler, some of it was actually really good. This is probably the most important episode just because we are actually getting into the game now and what everyone's been waiting for. So what does everyone think of it? Did the animation improve? Is the U20 game any good? What's the best and worst parts of this episode? I got everything you need to know, so let's get into it. Episode 7 picks up right where we left off and gets straight into the action of restarting the match. We can first talk about the pacing of this episode. Straight away, it is action-packed. This whole episode was just constant game playing, a manga adaptation of players showing off their skills. We see some of the new defenders like Dairai Moroku and Neru Tepe, just the Iron Wall quartet being showcased here, as well as BLUELOCK sort of struggling with them. Atoya couldn't get past the U20, Yukimiya even with his dribbling techniques couldn't break past, so it's really telling you how this match isn't going to be easy. We also finally got to see the main character of this match and quite literally the title of this episode, Itoshi Sae. This is the first time we're actually seeing him play. So there is a lot in this episode, which is good because it means it's action-packed. I think they nailed the pacing here, but how did they do with everything else? There's a very long Christmas list of stuff we need to cover, but I think this episode was actually pretty good. I would argue this is one of the best episodes of the season, especially because of the ending of this episode, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, the best episode of the season isn't too high of a bar considering the last few episodes and the bonfire that happened because of it, but I will say the moments they do good, man, it's actually peak. The best moment of this episode by far was Nagi Seishiro's goal. I think this was an absolute masterpiece. This is something everyone is talking about, probably the single best moment in all 7 episodes we got so far. This goal was built up so well, it felt like it was on par with season 1's goals, which hasn't been easy for season 2 so far. You had the OST building up and then it just cuts to everything silent and then slowing down the movements while Nagi introduces himself, and then you get everyone's reaction to Nagi as well, which finally builds up to his goal, and then the audience just starts yelling for BLUELOCK. It felt like you were actually at a football game. It was super hype. They captured the moment of the goal really well, and I think that's what we want from them. Unfortunately, there is another goal this episode that doesn't capture the moment well, but Nagi's goal was super enjoyable and single-handedly carried this episode up here. Even though there was actually very little animation, the delivery of it was really good. I think this is what fans want at this point. Just building up and delivering the hype because everyone loved this goal. This moment 100% was an improvement from the previous episodes, so we gotta give props. But what about everything else? Because it's not just Nagi's goal in this episode, there is a lot of other stuff. Let's talk about Itoshi Sae first, the main focus of this match, who is making his debut. This is the first time we're seeing him actually play. And I'm not gonna lie, this was not as good as Nagi's goal. In fact, I think they did Itoshi Sae kind of dirty here. Sae is supposed to be this unfathomable final boss. We have everyone talking about him and cheering him on, as well as all the previous hype. And the episode title is Itoshi Sae, but I felt like he kind of got sidelined for Nagi's goal. At this point, make the title Nagi Seishiro's goal, pull some One Piece spoiler title, because animation-wise, it's still the same PNGs and bare minimum movement, even for Sae, which sucks because, again, Sae is the main point of this episode. This is the first time we're seeing him. This whole sequence was kind of PNGs or CGI for the kicks and then a cut to a PNG. Shigure wasn't even running to stop him. His hair is just moving and then they put some motor sounds on it. Obviously, the animation is one thing. They didn't give him that much animation, especially considering he scores a goal. But Itoshi Sae also didn't even get his own OST for the goal. Instead, they played the same song for the literal first half. So there wasn't any song build-up for Nagi's goal. At least they cut out the OST. This was the same continuous one. And it was also this funky Mario Kart type beat. It really didn't fit the mood because, again, this guy is the biggest threat on the U20 squad. What were they thinking here? Not only that, the OST literally lasted for the first half of the episode. This music paired with the PNG sliding in was actually pretty funny. They gave everyone else OSTs. Why didn't Sae get one for a literal goal? I assume they're gonna save it for an even bigger moment for him, but I feel like the music should have been different at least. It sucks because OSTs or background music is usually some of the best parts of these episodes. And the reason why it's so important is because the build up to the goal because of the OSTs wasn't the greatest. And then you just had the PNG kick, so it's kind of underwhelming for the character with the main focus this episode. The other things, most frames besides Nagi's goal are just still images moving around. For example, Isagi is supposed to be moving behind Rin here, but they just went for the faithful manga adaptation yet again, and it's just a picture. So no improvements from the last 6 episodes. Some of them also looked pretty bad, like Yukimiya coming in out of nowhere here, and the speed that he did just had me hella dead. There was also more effects than usual, and half of them were really random, like Aiku coming in here like Lightning McQueen with some random red aura. This doesn't make any sense. But in terms of drawings, they do fantastically per usual. I actually think they improved in using more of that, especially with Nagi's goal. For example, him mid-air, instead of animating the jump, they just made a really good drawing, and it kind of passed because the drawings were really good and the moment was slowed down. Just the problem is everything else besides that looks pretty bad. Like, even though they nailed Nagi's goal, the animation overall is the same PNG animation. So even though they did 5% of the episode good, there is still another 95% there. Almost all of the abilities we saw besides Yukimiya's Laboba was just PNGs. I think the Iron Wall Quartet was pretty bad specifically. Dairai looked like he came out of a flat Stanley book. Every frame of him was just PNGs. And Narutepe's speed was just a slide transition from CapCut. They were just dragging him across the screen here. It's just kind of disappointing because the U20 is the main focus of the season and it had no improvements whatsoever. To be honest, we did expect this with everything going on with the animators. It's a very good thing that Nagi's goal was good because it kind of overshadowed all the still frames for the rest of the episode, because everyone would be really focusing on those still frames. And even then, people still did. The community reaction to this was everywhere. I saw a lot of people hyping up the Nagi goal, and for good reason. This was almost perfect. I completely agree. No complaints here, and I'm really happy that there's something positive about this. But even though the Nagi goal was good, people still couldn't ignore the rest of the animation, which makes sense considering in 99% of the episode, the rest of it is just PNGs. It looks like they're just focusing on the important parts, which is also confusing considering Sae was supposed to be the main focus. I saw a lot of people agree with me on Sae. I think everyone who read the manga felt the same way as well. The hype and delivery just wasn't there like it was in the manga, which makes sense considering the OST they used was straight up jazz. This is something you hear in an elevator. I will say, even with all of the inconsistent animation, Nagi's goal being good, everything else being subpar, this episode was still very enjoyable. And that is what matters most. The watching experience gets you hype, but still, enjoyment doesn't equal better animation. Like, even though I enjoyed this episode more than the others, just due to the content of it, does that mean the animation improved? Nah, not at all. I think both sides are right here. You have people that enjoy it, but a lot of people have the right to complain about the animation as well, and I completely understand that, because you gotta remember, this is the #1 selling manga. It's bound to be popular, and half of it isn't even animated. They just wanted to push it out. And it just sucks because we see them giving the manga justice, especially in this episode with Nagi's goal. It really just tells you how good this anime could have been if every moment was like this in terms of hype, build-up, and even animation. Like, Nagi's goal wasn't even that much animation, just the sheer hype and build-up to it, alongside him actually kicking the ball, has made it an amazing moment. So imagine if every single moment got the same justice that Nagi got, because the U20 match is filled with it. Point in case Itoshi Sae. This guy is supposed to be the best player, and they didn't even focus on him once. And I think a lot of people would rather have decent overall animation than really bad at some points and really good at some points. Consistency does kind of matter for the watching experience, so it doesn't turn off people. Anyways, that's it for this video. Per usual, just updating y'all on every episode on what people think and just the anime in general. I'll see y'all in the next one.